All events depicted in this podcast are real. However, the names, locations, and some details have been changed for the privacy of those involved. Hello and welcome to Season 1, Episode 2 of Walking on Eggshells with an Emotional Vampire, a podcast that above all things is about family. When I was a few months old, Dad packed up our family of 5 and moved to a little fishing village. It was a big move into completely unknown territory. No friends, no family, nothing. They didn't even have a place to stay. Just a few acres of empty farmland and a trailer full of luggage and tools. Before a big move like this, most people would try to secure a job, but not our old man. He met this obstacle like he met all challenges in his life. Head first and with supreme confidence. And so it was that in the autumn of 1982, Dad could be seen hammering a hand-painted wooden sign into the ground at the front of the property, declaring him the owner-builder. And he went to work. News of the 24-year-old man single-handedly constructing a 2-story home for his family spread quickly throughout the small town, particularly when he managed to raise the massive timber upright that would be the foundation of the house, using ropes and levers. By the time he pinned up the frame, Dad had already started doing cash-in-hand work, slaughtering and butchering livestock for local farmers, where he got a reputation for keeping the sharpest knives that anyone had ever seen. And it wasn't unusual to find him after a long day's work, giving beer-soaked knife-sharpening demonstrations at the local pub. A pub, by the way, where he often played and won the weekly pool competition, using a pool cue that he fashioned by hand using a drill, a chisel, and sandpaper. To this day, Dad's pool cue is mounted on the wall as a tribute to the years he spent in the old bar. And if it feels like I'm getting pulled off topic here, I am. But it's hard not to get pulled off topic when I start talking about the mythology of the old man. In fact, whenever I start telling stories about how exceptional Dad is, I find people rolling their eyes at me. Just another son who thinks their dad is amazing, I'm sure they're thinking. And while I do accept that there is an aspect of this to my storytelling, I still believe there is something exceptional about our dad. It seems like something worth exploring with the siblings. Okay, cool. Well, I'm recording now, and I think we've got Ellie on.
Yeah.
But just waiting on Aria. Are you recording yet, Aria?
I'm recording now too.
She scared the shit out of me. Oh my god.
Sorry.
Okay, well, we're definitely all here now anyway. Alright, so what I wanted to talk about was our perception of Dad and if that perception matches who Dad actually is. Because I think pretty much for most of my life, I thought Dad was the most awesome guy ever, and I think we all kind of did. But then I also think that everyone else thought he was amazing too, or at least the majority of people did. But then, now when I talk about it, I find myself questioning whether that was just my perception of him, or if people really did see him like that. Like, do we think that Dad was exceptional, or do you think he was just a normal dad? Well, he's definitely not a normal dad, but do you think he wasn't that exceptional, I guess? I mean, feel free to shoot forward with any responses.
Sorry, I was waiting for Ellie to go first, and then you're always just so silent.
Well, just me or Ellie or who?
No, Ellie's just always so silent.
Well, it's an open question to anyone, so anyone can jump in.
I was thinking about like some times, yeah.
Well, even if you don't go into specific times yet, do we think that he was incredible?
I feel like back when I was a kid, I feel like he was.
Yeah, me too.
I thought he was pretty awesome, and up until, recently, I thought he was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I was the same way. And it wasn't just in a way that, like, kids would think he was cool. It's like everybody thought he was cool. And kind of like the guy. He was the guy, like the man, When I tried to put into words the special quality that Dad had, I found myself using a lot of overused cliched expressions, like the man or the alpha male. But I think that's because there isn't an expression for that special something that he had. It was a mixture of qualities and traits, that gave him kind of a celebrity status
That's
wherever he
like
went.
people kind of knew, and it was like word of mouth. Do you reckon, or if that is that just because he just the way he held himself and the way he...
No, it wasn't. It wasn't just word of mouth, because I did a lot of work with him out of town, and we'd arrive in the town, and within minutes of getting there, everybody knew he was the guy. Like, he just, I don't know how he did it. He had an aura about him. And
He had respect as well. I remember there was some like young guys that kept using our backyard as a walkway from one street to another.
Oh, I remember this.
And he mentioned something to one of his mates and they knew who they were. And then the next day, or I think it was that night, those guys came back, the young guys came back with a carton of beer and apologised to Dad and said they never did it again.
They were probably scared.
No, but they were fine. It wasn't until someone actually said, you know who that is, right? And they were like, oh crap.
Well, the thing about these kids is they were tough neighborhood kids. They weren't intimidated by anyone, and usually they wouldn't give a shit if someone cared if they were walking through their yard. But for whatever reason, Dad managed to get that respect off them. And I think when you first hear it, you think it would just have to do with him being intimidating or scary or something. But, I mean, he does have that aspect to his personality. There is a violence to him, an unpredictable sort of violence to him.
Yeah, I've seen him change.
We've all seen him change. We know what it's like. But
Yeah.
when we talk about this, it sounds like he's this intimidating figure, like Robert De Niro off of This Boy's Life. Like he rules through fear and intimidation. And I don't think that's correct. That's not who he was, and that's not why people gravitated towards him. I think he was loved more than he was feared, and he had more of a parent vibe, a really cool parent vibe, I guess. A really cool, crazy, violent parent vibe. I guess that's probably how I describe it.
It'd be funny.
Boiling Dad's essence down into a sentence is no easy task. But somehow these 6 simple words seem to sum him up perfectly. So what are the traits of a guy with a really cool, crazy, violent parent vibe? With any luck, by the end of this episode, you'll have some idea. Very big guy. Like, he's not like Joe Pesci or Richie Aprile of Sopranos. Like, he's not that, but he's not a big guy, but
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think
He's like the same height as me.
Yeah, and you're like an average sized chick, you know?
I'm not a tall person.
No, not at all.
I mean, I'm average, like just above average for a female, but I'm not towering or anything.
I mean, I remember him always being muscly. Like, he was always muscly. Like, he had the big shoulders and he had the big, you know, like the abs. Is it the ab? Not the abs. What is it? You know, his big muscles, kind of tricep muscles and that sort of thing. I always remember him being big because, you know, like back in the day, they used to put the smoke packet under the shirt of their arm and stuff, you know.
Did he do that?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I never saw that.
Oh my God, I missed out on that.
It's like the Fonz.
And then he
Oh
had
my God.
Hey, go to loose, bro.
Yeah, that's what he did. And then eventually he used to get like shirts with pockets in them. So then he'd put it in the front pocket. You know, like shirts come sometimes just with one pocket in the front.
Yeah.
And then he used to do that. But before that, it was like under the sleeve of the shirt.
But he also had a moustache.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
He did. And then with the smoke, the moustache, and his hair was like that 70s, like
Yeah, long.
longy style.
And jet black hair.
Oh, I can just imagine it.
And he didn't have the handlebar moustache, did he?
He couldn't grow the handlebar. He sort of tried, but his was more like, what's that on when you play Guess Who? Charles? Charles has yellow hair though. But if Charles had black hair and a black mustache, that's very Dad's look. You know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly who you're talking about. Because they've got a new version of that now, so they don't look the same, but...
Hang on, I gotta look this up.
Oh my God.
Charles Guess Who. Okay.
Is it Charles? Oh. That's him. That's 100%. The same hair.
Yep, that's him.
Oh my
I don't know about his
God.
lips though. Charles has very full lips, so I don't think his lips are quite that
No.
full.
Charles has had some Botox on those lips, for sure. But it's the same hairstyle and everything,
It's
actually.
the same hairstyle. It just needs to be jet black. You know what? If it's a mix between Charles and Alex. If you had Alex's hair color and lips, but Charles's style, that would be perfect. That would be Dad to a T. I'm not sure if I'm doing a good job of explaining this properly. I'm trying to convey how cool Dad is, and the best I can come up with so far is that he looks like a mix between Danny Zuko off of Grease and a couple of Guess Who caricatures. I think I need to get serious here and tell you about arguably Dad's most hypermasculine, macho, cool trait.
It's the finger.
It's time to tell you about the finger.
Alrighty. So, Dad, he's got this weird defected finger. Like, it's the pointer finger, but the last knuckle of the finger's twisted the wrong way.
Yeah.
Like, it's not right.
No,
it's all crooked.
It looks like a nightmare. Like, it's so bad the way it looks. This fat... It looks muscular though, but this fat, horrific nightmare finger.
Yeah, it just doesn't look right.
And while the appearance of the defected finger is intriguing to talk about, the story
was
behind
younger,
it is what really matters.
I'd ask him what happened to his finger, and he told me that he was chopping wood up, but he was only very, very young. And he chopped the tip of his finger off, and so his mum bandaged his finger up. This is back in China as well, so this is they were living in, I guess it was like poverty or whatever. But yeah, she bandaged his finger up and told him not to touch it. But him being a little kid, he touched it and he twisted it, so when it healed up wrong, so his finger was twisted.
It's funny, I get almost exactly the same story from Dad, but he's always told me that it was his brother who chopped his finger off. So our Uncle Lex was the one who chopped his finger off. But the rest of the story is exactly the same. They were, 9 or 10 years old, living in poverty in China. You've got a story about the bone sticking out of his finger or something? Tell me about that story.
Okay, so this defected finger caused him a lot of issues because there was a bit of bone that would stick out near the knuckle, and he'd constantly be hitting it on things because he works a lot and he uses his hands a lot. So it was really bothering him, and the bone had really started to stick out. So instead of going to the doctor, he just got a very sharp knife and decided to shave the bone that was sticking out from the tip of his knuckle, and to shave it down so it wouldn't bother him as much anymore.
This is so Dad.
And that sounds just excruciatingly painful. And when I asked him did it hurt, he gave this grimace yes, it hurt.
So, have I persuaded you of Dad's awesomeness yet? I mean, come on. The guy shaved the bone off his own defected finger with a samurai sharp blade that he probably sharpened himself in the local pub. That's like Rambo shit right there. But in case you're not convinced, here's another story from Aria to hammer the point home.
16 or something, and I went over to visit him, and he was sitting outside, and he had some a needle and some line or cotton or something, and he was on the phone, and he looked and he's like, "Oh, I've got to go," and he said goodbye to the person that he was on the phone with, and I looked at him and he had this blood down his leg, and his leg was stitched up. So what happened to your leg? And he's like, "Oh, I just stitched it up because I couldn't be bothered going to the hospital to wait to get it stitched. I thought I may as well just do it myself." And I said, "What the hell is wrong with you? Jesus." And he's like, "Yeah, to keep my mind off it, I rang my girlfriend, and I was talking to her on the phone."
That is such a move. Man, that's what you do when you're a teenager to try and be cool in front of the girlfriend. Like, I'm gonna stitch my leg up right now. Just calling you because I need you to keep my mind off the pain.
Well, that's what he said. And
was this Mary or was this?
this is Bulldog Face.
Okay, this is Bulldog Face.
Because
From what you have just heard here, I'm sure that you have two questions. The first being, did your dad really have a girlfriend named Bulldog Face? And the second being, was she really the type of gal to be wooed by someone stitching up their own leg? And the answer to both questions is, of course, yes. But the saga of Bulldog Face is a story for another episode.
after, I think it was like the next day or a little while after I like caught up with her and was talking about it, and she's like, yeah, I was talking to him for about 10 minutes, and I asked him what he was doing, and he's like, just stitching up my leg.
I bet she loves it as well. She was the worst. She would have thought it was romantic or something. And I bet it was a giant wound. I know what he's like. It would have been huge.
It was a massive wound on his
Yes.
leg. I think a rock flew up when he was mowing the lawn or something. I don't know, but it was a big wound. It was.
Do you know how many stitches it was?
I think it was at least like 4 stitches or something. Like it was a decent one.
So, if we're analysing the really crazy, cool, violent parent vibe mission statement that has become the thesis of this episode, I feel like I've done a pretty solid job covering the crazy and cool parts. Stitching up your own leg to impress the girlfriend over the phone must take care of that, surely. And as eager as you might be to hear about some of Dad's violent traits, I think I might hold off on those. For now, anyway. Next, what I want to focus on is what gave the old man that parent vibe. You know, the kind of vibe that had the local neighbourhood kids coming to him for advice. And funny enough, we've already touched on one aspect of it. His backyard medical degree. Because Dad wouldn't just stitch up his own leg. He was more than happy to perform these surgeries on us kids too. And as barbaric as they may have sounded, for the most part, they worked. And they worked well.
So he tied the fishing line around the wart
And it's really painful when you tie it, because he ties it off as tight as he can and it strangles it.
and then yanked him off with the fishing line.
And then it would turn black and go hard, and then it would just drop off.
That hurt. That wasn't pleasant.
And you can smell the burning flesh, which
And he just gets me to sit down, grabs my foot, and starts sucking the venom out of my foot, my dirty foot that I've been running around all day with.
said that the flesh will stop pushing back when it gets past the roots of the wart.
And drilled a little hole in through the top of my nail. But it worked. He got it out. My foot was fine. I went back to playing.
But when he saw the flap of skin, and you'd see him get the knife out and be like, you have to use a sharp knife to do this. That's the only way it works.
I mean, it was weird having some grown man suck your foot.
And he said you just keep pulling it out every time it comes back, and then eventually you won't have it anymore. And he was right, like, I don't have it anymore.
I needed to get braces, but I couldn't get braces because there was 2 adult molars that hadn't gone through because the baby molars were still stuck in my mouth. And the dentist said that I couldn't get braces until those baby teeth had fallen out. The dentist appointment ended and I told Dad about it, and he said, oh, well, let's check him out. And we went down into his back shed and he got a pair of like work pliers, and I opened my mouth up and he put the pliers in my mouth and pulled out the baby teeth so that I could get braces, so I didn't have to wait any longer to get braces. And I thought it was awesome because I could get braces like sooner.
When I put the edit together for this last section, cataloguing Dad's backyard surgeries, I thought I was putting together a pretty solid argument for how parental Dad was. But now, looking back on it, I feel like I made him look like a psychopath. Maybe smash cutting this edit together as a rock montage wasn't the best idea. But that's okay. There are plenty of other parental stories out there to get my point across.
He'd always fix things like broken toys and everything, but he'd fix them in a way that it was like to the extreme.
Yeah, I think this might be a good example. What's more parental than fixing kids' toys, right?
And Christmas Day, he would be the entire time in his workshop just fixing the toys that broke for all the kids that were there.
I used to love that so much when he'd do that. I remember one Christmas I got nunchucks because I was a big Ninja Turtles fan. And they were those little crappy plastic ones that you get. and I was flicking him around, and within 10 minutes had snapped the chain
Oh
on
my God,
them.
I remember that.
And then he disappeared into his shed and come back an hour later, and he brought back these nunchucks that were full on hand carved out of wood with these metal chains, like military style nunchucks. That was so cool.
I feel like you used to hit me with them.
I used to hit everyone with them, but most of all, I hit myself in the head with them when I was swinging them around.
Like, I got a pogo stick and it broke within, like, I don't know, 2 days or something. And then he used, like, I don't know, like iron or something to reinforce everything. And it was the most intense pogo stick you could ever have. Like, you were jumping.
Jumping small buildings with it?
Yeah. And then I didn't want to use it because I was terrified of just springing off into nowhere.
But that was what he used to do. Sometimes he'd fix things and he'd fix them great, but sometimes he'd fix them too much and you wouldn't want to use them, you know?
This was like putting dents into the concrete as I jumped.
People are locking their doors as you're flying down the road on this gladiator pogo stick.
Yeah, thinking that you were coming for them. Come and...
It would only take me like 3 jumps and I could get across the street.
Well, he also made me that gun. Because I got a pop gun from the rodeo and it would shoot a cork like 30 centimeters or something. It was terrible. But then he took it and took the base of it, but then supercharged it completely and turned it into a full-on pistol. And you could shoot a rock through the wall with it. It was incredible.
And then back in them days, it like you could make a slingshot that took someone's eye out and it would be no one would even blink an eye, whereas now,
Literally.
like if you gave a kid a slingshot...
Blink an eye.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. They wouldn't blink an eye because they have no eye.
They wouldn't blink an missing eye.
I'm not sure if this is getting my point across or not. I think I still might be giving Dad that psychopath vibe. I might try one more of these Toy Stories and see if it gets any
You know
better.
what toy I got? When he killed the chicken, he'd cut off the chicken's foot and tie a string to the tendons so then I could move each toe of the chicken foot.
Okay, definitely not getting better. That's more of a Jeffrey Dahmer vibe now.
I told a friend about that and they were traumatized.
I think it's definitely time to move on. You see, for whatever reason, Dad always seemed to be called on to play a protective father figure role by misfit and disadvantaged youths around the neighbourhood. More often than not, this dynamic would manifest itself in extreme scenarios where said youth had gotten themselves into some hot water and needed help getting out. Me and Dad were out the back, and then Eli comes running around the side of the house screaming, and he's got tears running down the side of his face, and he's hyperventilating because he's been sprinting, and he comes around there and he says, "This guy's trying to kill me, this guy's trying to kill me." Eli was one of my best mates growing up. He lived across the street. And of course, Dad, in his calm sort of way, just says, "Tell me what's happened, tell me what's going on, it's fine." And then Eli says, "This guy, he's chasing me with an axe, he's gonna kill me." And Dad says, "Okay, let's go sort this out." Eli had been heading to the beach that day, and in order to shorten the 15-minute walk, he would often cut across people's backyards. But on this day, he jumped the fence into the wrong guy's property. And it was funny because he wasn't like, "All right, you kids wait here, I'm going to sort this out." He's like, "All right, come on, let's all go sort this out together." And the thing was, as we were walking, Eli's saying to him, "The guy's got an axe and he's crazy." And Dad keeps saying, "Yeah, it's fine, don't worry, I'll sort it out, it's okay, don't worry about it, we'll sort it out." And he didn't care, he didn't even want the details. It wasn't like, "Okay, the guy's got an axe, I need to worry about this." He's like, "It's fine, whatever's down there, I'm confident that I can handle it, it's okay." And by doing that, it made us confident as well. I remember this walk clearly, in the way that everybody remembers extreme moments from their past. I remember Dad's carefully paced steps behind Eli, urging him forward, to lead the way towards the axe-wielding lunatic. Eli points out where the place is, and when we get there, we walk out the front, and then, as promised, this hatchet-wielding lunatic busts out of the front door, and he starts storming towards us, and he's pointing at Eli, and he says, "You get that thief off my property!" And as he's coming forward, Dad positions himself between Eli and the lunatic, the lunatic with the axe, and he says, "You can't talk to him like that." And this really pissed the guy off because the guy just goes like, "What the fuck are you talking? Get the fuck away from my house." And as he said it, he's moving forward and he's got the axe raised like he's going to take a swing. And it looked pretty bad. Like we were like, this is pretty bad. This is gonna go to blows. And in that moment, as Eli and I cowered behind Dad, waiting for the inevitable clash, I experienced one of the most badass things I have ever seen. Dad looked the guy directly in the eye as he's coming towards him, and he says, "If you're going to use that thing, you better kill me with the first swing, because you're not going to get a second shot." And, of course, the guy shit in his pants. His dad had dropped the nuclear bomb. And then he pretty much just apologized and lowered the axe and promised never to bother Eli again. Like, that was it. That was the end of the story. I think I just realized something. All this time, I've been trying to separate the violent parts of Dad's personality to showcase the parental parts. Like, if I put his violence fully on display, it would make him seem less fatherly or something. But now I think maybe the opposite might be true, and that there is no time that he seems more parental than when he's righting a wrong with his fists. I do have an example from Ellie that encapsulates this. However, this story comes with a warning, because I think some listeners may find it triggering.
One night, Dad and Mum had a couple of friends over. Well, they were all male friends, so I'm assuming they're all Dad's friends. And so we were sort of sitting there before we had to go to bed, and we were watching TV. So I think it was me, maybe you, and Cara. We were watching sort of TV before we went to bed, but we were all in the room where everyone was. And I think he must have had about, I don't know, I think it was about 2, maybe 3 friends over. And they were all sitting on the couches and chatting and whatever. And so we were sitting, just watching TV and stuff. And then this one particular guy, every time I turned around, he sort of looked at me, but it was like he looked at me and smiled. And it was the really kind of that creepy kind of look, when you just like, someone looks at you and they just give you that kind of a weird kind of creepy smile. And anyway, I just, we were, Dad's thing was always, you got to be polite to everybody, you be polite to the friends that come over, say hello, whatever. So, I was obviously, reciprocating, and I smiled back at him, but thought he was really creepy and stuff. So, and anyway, so we ended up going to bed. And then, so I guess they were just, as the night kind of progressed on and whatever, they must have been having a few drinks or something, whatever. And I think Mum had gone to bed at some point in between all of that when we went to bed, obviously. And then she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm off to bed," or whatever. And then I think this guy would come down and go to the bathroom, or pretend like he was going to the bathroom. And then he came into the bedroom. I remember him putting his hand on the bed, on top of the covers, and sort of rubbing up and down, sort of, I don't know what he was trying to feel for or whatever. Like, I can't even remember how old I was at that time. Might have been about 11, 12 maybe, I think. Maybe a bit older. So he sort of rubbed on top of the blankets when he sort of came in, and I don't know, maybe he was trying to work out whether I was the girl or the boy. I'm not sure, because you were sleeping in the room on the bottom bunk, and then it sort of stopped for a second, but I just had assumed he was down at the bottom bunk, maybe doing the same thing. I don't know, I didn't say that, but it stopped for a second, and then all of a sudden he came back, and then he tried to put his hands in the covers. And as soon as he did that, I have no idea, I pulled this strength out from somewhere, and I held the blankets down so tight he actually couldn't get his hand in. I don't know, I have no idea. I have no idea how I held it down, a grown man against an 11-year-old, 12-year-old girl or whatever. I grabbed the side of the blanket and I held it down as hard as I could and as strong as I could, and he couldn't get his hand in. So I didn't have anything else happen there, but I think he obviously thought he was spending too much time in there, and I don't know whether he went back to the lounge room kind of thing and chatted for a bit, and then maybe sort of a little while passed, and then I know he came back. So he tried a few more times, and I was like just gripping it as strong as I could, trying to, and I was obviously trying to move away from the edge of the bed as well, because it was the top bunk, he could obviously try and get it at me easily, kind of thing. So I was moving towards the other side of the bed, which was against the wall. So I was trying to push myself back that way, plus trying to hold this thing down. But I managed to kind of hold it down, and he didn't get under the blankets, if you know what I mean. So he just kind of touched the top of the blankets, and that was all. So I didn't have anything else happen there. But
thankfully, Ellie's super strength was enough to hold off the advancing predator. But things didn't end here. Somehow, suspicions had been aroused, and word got back to Dad that his buddy had been prowling around his kids' rooms.
Probably sent Dad into a bit of a rage because, you know, he's invited this person over to the house, and, you know, he's obviously tried to touch his kids. You know, like it's awful. It actually makes me sick thinking about it. It's just like, oh. So then I think there was some fighting. I think I was still in my room. We were probably told to go back to our rooms, and I actually don't know what happened after that. I guess the only other thing that I can kind of remember about that was when it was in the morning, and I remember like getting up and stuff, and I remember going to put something in the bin, and the way our bin was situated in the house was it was in a cupboard. So I think you pulled the bin out of the cupboard or whatever, and so I went to pull the bin out of the cupboard, and I seen like a row of teeth in the cupboard in the bin. So that was like grossed me out even more. I was just like, oh. So yeah.
Hang on, I thought I'd heard every story about this night, but I don't think I've heard this one before. So what? It was teeth? Is that what you're saying?
It was a row of teeth. Now, I don't know whether it was false teeth or whether it was real teeth. It was actually like almost a set of teeth. Like I think possibly the front part, maybe. I don't know.
So he knocked his teeth out, in other words.
But it looked like a plate, kind of something like that. Like it looked like it would have been a plasticky sort of thing. But I didn't touch it. I was just too grossed out. I was just like, well, I mean, it didn't seem to have blood or anything on it, so I assume it was some sort of a plate.
While none of us witnessed the assault firsthand, the details weren't difficult to find, as word spread around the small town of the brutal way that our father protected his family. As the story goes, when Dad realised that the man had been in his kid's room, he confronted him about it, knocked his teeth out, and ordered him to leave, or he was going to kill him. And the guy did. He left immediately. After some time passed, Dad was able to calm down, and the party continued. That was until one of the guests noticed that the man's car was still parked in our driveway. When Dad arrived at the car, he found the man sitting in the driver's seat, pleasuring himself. This put Dad into a complete rage, and he dragged the man out of the car. Our property sat at the back of a cul-de-sac, and our dad beat this man bloody up and down this cul-de-sac until finally the police came and took him to the hospital, where he had his jaw wired back together. As legend has it, there was a white truck parked in the cul-de-sac that night, and Dad repeatedly slammed the man's face into the side of the truck, leaving bloody red face prints behind. The following day, nosy townspeople would drive out to see the face prints before they were forced to wash them off. After the man recovered from surgery, he was shamed and forced to leave. However, he'd grown up in the small town, and his entire life was there. So 6 months later, he tried to return. His first stop was to visit Dad to apologise, but Dad didn't accept his apology, and instead threw him down the stairs and told him to leave and never come back. And he never did. And when I talk about the violent aspects of Dad's personality, this is what I'm talking about. Because this isn't an isolated incident. There are stories like these scattered throughout our entire childhood. So how is it that Dad's violent nature is connected to his parental vibe? Before I put an end to this story, it seemed like something I needed to get my sister's opinion on.
Since the last time I saw the two of you, I've actually created something for you to have a look at.
Oh, God.
Oh, God. I don't like the sound of
What do
it.
you think I'm going to send through? Okay, calm down. I've sent it now. Check your phone.
Oh my god.
In the time since I'd last spoke with the sisters, I had put my limited Photoshop skills to good use, editing a photo of Charles from Milton Bradley's 1987 board game, Guess Who, to look like Dad.
What do you think? Do you think that's a good interpretation or a good impression of Dad?
Apart from the Botox lips, yes, that is just
Yeah, I could.
freaking amazing.
Yeah, apart from the big, because his lips are a bit thinner, but yeah, no, it's good.
While I will accept it wasn't a perfect representation, overall, I was happy with the results.
I couldn't change his lips. I tried to shrink it down. I'm not that good on Photoshop, so I couldn't work out how to do it. But I changed the eyes.
Those lips are intense.
Yeah, the lips are intense. But what do you think of the eyes?
Yeah, perfect.
Cool. All right. Well, that's out of the way. We've seen that, and
I love it.
we know for
Yeah.
certain that the look of Dad is a black-headed, green-eyed Charles off of Guess Who.
While this was a fun, light-hearted way to start the conversation, I knew there were more sensitive topics to discuss. Topics that would require a soft touch. So, with this in mind, I pressed on.
Discuss this. The thing that I really came to talk about was the whole pedophile thing.
Jesus.
I don't know why I feel like I always have to refer to this as the pedophile thing. It sounds really bad.
Is so bad.
It does sound really bad. Why do you do that?
Well, I mean, I could refer to it as the attempted raping. That's worse, right?
What's wrong with you?
I don't know. I think it's just my sense of humour. Nothing makes me laugh more than when the two of you are disgusted or horrified at something that I say. But look, I mean, when you boil it down, there was no raping, but there was a pedophile. So
There was no raping, but he was a pedophile. Jesus.
Well, was he a pedophile? I guess. I mean, that's
Yes.
Yes.
He's preying on children.
He was a pedo. He was trying to feel kids up.
Yeah, I guess he is a pedophile, or at least a budding pedophile.
No, he's a pedophile.
He's a pedo.
Do you have to actually? Yeah, no, he's a pedophile. That's true.
Yeah, but yeah, I could imagine there'd be other stuff he would be doing other than trying to touch kids up as well.
I'm sure it's probably not the first time he's done that. Oh, that's horrible. I hate thinking about it. It makes me sick. Like,
Man, this actually got much more sad than I was expecting. That is horrible. Yeah, I actually feel bad now. It's kind of sickening.
It makes me sick too.
Yeah. And well, the thing that I actually wanted to ask was, and I think I know what the answer is now, but do we think that what Dad did to him was valid? Or do we think that he got what he deserved and Dad was right to do what he did?
to cut off his penis.
Yeah.
Like, more. He should have been.
I could have got the pop gun that Dad supercharged, and I could have shot him in the testicles with it. Ari would be bouncing on his testicles with the gladiator pogo stick.
Oh, yes, I totally would. Just straight, like, doing, doing, doing. Oh.
Absolutely.
And what else is there? There's my nunchucks. I could beat his testicles with my nunchucks.
Those super ones that your dad made.
Hang on, did he just turn all our toys into weapons? Is that the trend? He wasn't fixing them; he was making them deadly.
But see, he's making sure we can protect ourselves.
Yes.
Having navigated the sensitive waters of the pedophile story, and coming out on the other side with the sisters firmly in favour of Dad's actions, I felt it was time to nudge the conversation back on track.
No one would blink an eye.
Yeah. I didn't even think of that. Like that he made us all weapons. That's pretty wild. But so I always sort of tried to shield Dad's violent tendencies from people because I feel like it made him sound a bit crazy or whatever. But thinking about it now, especially with incidents like this, it really does seem like his violent tendencies make him seem more fatherly or something. I don't know. That's sort of what I'm trying to get to the bottom of.
Well, it's because he's, like, protecting you. You're going to be safe. Like, whatever happens, he's got the ability to keep you safe. Like, that's how I always felt with him.
Yeah, same. And then he always seemed to know what to do in a situation, if you know what I mean. Like, he always seemed to...
Yeah, nothing took him by surprise.
Yeah. he's always seems to have a plan. Like when he goes somewhere, if
it's true. That's one of the things about him is that whenever we went somewhere, whenever you got confronted by something, he always knew exactly what to do, and he'd lay it out step by step by step by step. Like that was the thing that he had. Something I remember, and I don't want to say who it was about, but let's just say one of the kids was having issues with someone in their life, and it was a big problem at the time. And then Dad came back and told me basically step by step of how if things got bad enough, he could kill this person. And he went through all the steps of how he would kill them and how he would get away with it. And it was quite brilliant. And I remember believing that, well, absolutely, if things went too far, this is what he would do. I also felt sort of, I don't know, a bit of pride or something in the fact that he told me about it and he trusted me.
Oh my God.
Because he knew that I wouldn't, I'd keep my mouth shut if it did happen.
Oh my God.
I swear, every story that I tell makes him sound like a psychopath. I don't know why.
Yeah, well, that's a bit scary.
Well, my thoughts are really tame compared to that.
Let's just ignore that, because that's. I'm really trying to get to more about how you felt protected around him. That's the thing that I want to feel, not the psychopath vibe. Because that's the thing is, he had this protective vibe, right? You always felt safe with him, right? Help me out here.
And you did. You always felt safe.
It's like having a teddy bear. Not a teddy bear, a grizzly bear as a best friend.
Okay.
With the big bear hugs, and it's not going to hurt you, but it'll hurt anyone that comes near you.
That's it. They look cool, and it's like, oh, look at my big bear. He's friendly and he's awesome. But then something happens, and then he just rips everyone else apart. But he's your bear, so it's fine.
Grizzly dad.
Yeah, not a teddy bear, a grizzly bear. Like, that's the thing. Not...
His claws are retracted and his eyes are like nice and green, but then if something angers him, the claws come out and his eyes turn red. Like, ah!
Yeah, and he rips down the entire forest to kill everything.
But you're safe.
Yeah, which is the most important thing.
Which is the most important thing.
What more could I want? I guess I think that's the best we're going to get from this conversation, to be honest.
So what are the final thoughts in all this? I think when I started this episode, I had the idea that I might prove without question that our dad was exceptional compared to other dads. But now, when I look back on that question, it sounds so juvenile. I essentially became one of those bratty kids in the schoolyard, yelling at the other that my dad could beat up your dad. Because that's what I'm doing, right? Even in adulthood, I'm still trying to convince people that my dad is the best. So maybe the question shouldn't be, was my dad awesome? But instead, how deep and narcissistic are my own insecurities? I will admit that I am a little bitter about the way mine and Dad's relationship has declined over the years, and I'm certainly having problems coming to terms with some of his later life decision making. Is it possible this is all just my way of dealing with that? And I'm trying to convince myself that it's him who changed, and not me? And of course, I'm using this episode to hide my baggage, like a pair of well-washed red undies? Maybe. But I digress. Which leads me back to the real conclusion of this episode, which is this. Our father was amazing. He was brave and wise and strong and moral. He was our protector, and he was truly our hero and a mentor that we all looked up to and hoped to be like. But things wouldn't always be this way. If this episode has left you curious about Dad's appearance, you might be interested in the link in the description. Next time on Walking on Eggshells with an Emotional Vampire, a poignant coming-of-age story and a moving reflection on the loss of innocence. And on top of that, we also discover Aria's memory cabinets.
You're like a genius with your memories.
Like, I'm not amazing at it, but I just visualize filing cabinets and then I, like, go through the filing cabinets in my head with certain memories in certain categories and stuff.
Just out of curiosity, what category did you initially go to when you heard about leather jackets? Did you go to the clothes drawer and be like, leather jackets?
And that's why when I said fish, you're like, oh, it's fish. No, I haven't. I already checked the fish drawer and it wasn't in
No,
there.
I'm looking for obscure memories. Like, I can remember things like general memories, but if it's something that I'm like, do I remember that? Was that a long time ago? Then I visualize that and it helps me to remember hard to remember memory.
That's next time on Walking on Eggshells with an Emotional Vampire. If you enjoyed today's episode, why not let us know about it with an email to eggshellvampire@gmail.com. That's eggshellvampire@gmail.com. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you listen. And most importantly, tell your friends about us. We want to be heard. Walking on Eggshells with an Emotional Vampire is written, produced, and edited by me, Lucas Shaw. Thanks for listening.